Welcome to the Beyond the Vines podcast, where I interview local business owners in Sonoma County to highlight small business and grow our community. I'm your host, Amy Ahlers, a mom, realtor, and Sonoma County native, and I'm excited to connect you to some amazing people in this beautiful area that we call home. Hi, welcome back to Beyond the Vines. Thank you so much again for joining us today. I am here today with Kara Stewart. She is the founder, president, and advisor at Focus Strategic Solutions, which is located in Windsor. She is amazing. Kara is passionate about helping individuals and families turn their financial dreams into reality using actionable and well-thought-out financial strategies. She's been involved in the financial services industry for more than 2 decades, gaining experience as a market maker of community bank stocks such as Bank of Petaluma, Exchange Bank, and Sonoma National. She also served as the financial services manager and assistant vice president for a local commercial insurance agency before opening her own independent practice in 2010. Kara focuses on helping clients determine what prosperity means to them and designing custom solutions to help them achieve their goals while reducing their current and future tax liabilities, which I know we're all thinking about tax liabilities right now. Her Focus retirement strategy is designed to help clients make their wealth work for them by creating a solid plan for the road ahead. Where most financial advisors focus on accumulation, Kara also focuses on distribution and creating tax-efficient cash flow strategies to help clients to and through retirement. She is also a financial professional who holds life and annuity insurance licenses and has passed the Series 6, 7, and 63 security exams. She's been featured on Fox, CBS, ABC, and NBC, and in North Bay Business Magazine. She's a lifelong native of Sonoma County and loves spending time with her husband, Chris, and their children, Justin and Genevieve, and their boxer, Willow. I love boxers, by the way. Kara enjoys nature, hiking, yoga, Pilates, going to the gym, and practicing her spirituality. You'll always find flowers in her home, and they are her essential to sunshine. So welcome, Kara. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
It's so good to have you here, and it's such a exciting topic for me. I love this topic, so it's really fun to have you in the office today and recording with us. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
So share with us a little bit about how you got started in financial advising and what inspired you from that point to open Focus.
Sure. Well, I have always, my mom is probably my biggest mentor in terms of financial planning. I will never forget being a little girl inside Safeway and shopping with my mom. And she would say, upon checkout, she would say, "Oh, Mrs. Carlson, you saved $67." And she would literally go to the ATM and transfer $67 from her checking to her savings account.
That's brilliant.
She was that disciplined. Mm-hmm. And so just growing up, I've just learned that to keep money safe, protected, but also grow. When I attended Sonoma State, I was dating my now husband, and so I didn't want to go too far. I worked for Wells Fargo Bank as a personal banking officer for 5 years, and then was recruited to Merrill Lynch and worked there for a period of time. So the evolution was kind of one foot in front of the other, right? And just learning as I go. And actually, 2009, the insurance company that I worked for actually eliminated my department. So in about 24 hours, I had about 8 different job offers. But at the end of all that, it was like, but what if? What if I could open my own firm and do things my way? One of the things I've learned, having worked in all the financial service distribution channels that exist in my industry, is that they're not truly fiduciaries. And what I mean by that is they have products that they have access to, and they're limited in that scope. And so I advise my clients on a holistic perspective. I work for my client and not any particular insurance or investment company, which is truly a difference in the financial advisor space.
For sure. That's amazing. That is really amazing. I love that you start with that story of you and your mom, because I always think that, a lot of the financial podcasts I listen to, it's always, what's your first money memory, Right. And I do think about that as a parent. What are my kids going to remember as their first money memories? What am I teaching, and what's going to scar them?
That's true. Well, even my kids now that they're even young adults, they'll still say, I know the house isn't free and the food's not free and the clothes and the water.
Totally. Yes.
I've just instilled that in them too.
Exactly.
Everything
shopping at Target. Did you bring your money? Then no, you're not getting that.
And isn't it interesting when it's their money, their decisions to buy is different.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I love that you started with that. And also that makes me think I need to do what your mom did. So retirement planning can be overwhelming for many people. What are some common misconceptions people have about preparing for retirement, and how do you address them?
Sure. Well, it is the most coveted retirement plan is an IRA, right? Individual retirement account, which can come in a couple different forms. So a 401k is just simply an employer-sponsored IRA. Same thing with a 403b, 457. All of those accounts are qualified. And what I mean by qualified is they're tax deferred. So you're kicking the can down the road in terms of taxation, and you're adding money along the way as you go. And at the end of the road, Uncle Sam's saying, well, I didn't charge you on $1, but now I'm charging you on $100. And taxes by percentage are going up.
Right.
So we're sunsetting in 2025, which means all of the tax cuts that Trump imposed are expiring. We also added $14 trillion to our national debt with the pandemic.
Right.
We have a real issue with Social Security funding, and that the baby boomers are progressing through that system, pulling on that lifetime annuity. So where is the funding going to come from other than taxation?
Right.
So most clients come to me with that thought process is 80 to 90% of their portfolio is in that qualified account.
Right.
So they're actually creating a tax burden for themselves in retirement.
Yep.
So getting out that education about tax-free planning, and not that the Roth is the only option.
Right. That's great. That's really good information. Yeah, I always think that too, because for me, I'd rather pay it now at the tax rate that we're at now as opposed to something unpredictable.
Right. Well, and even right now is kind of a window of opportunity where we can do a lot of Roth conversions.
Great.
So just trying to explain to people that I always say taxes are on sale. And
I
so
love
to
that.
convert some of your qualified money to non-qualified so that when you distribute it, it then is tax-free. Because as you said in the intro, I focus not only on accumulation, which is obviously important. You know, you think about getting up the mountain, that's important, but distributing your assets, getting back down the mountain. Because if you look at like Everest, most people die on the way down because they're not adequately prepared.
Right. Definitely something to think about. So you host many local events educating people on retirement strategies. What are some of the key takeaways you often emphasize during these events?
Well, one size does not fit all. And so some of all of those events are speaking generalities and concepts based with the intention of just, again, getting the information out there, just explaining just a lot of the misconceptions, again, about retirement planning, the way that the advisor models are. And what I mean by that is, again, something I was intentionally thoughtful of when I went independent was to not charge the way typical normal advisors charge.
Right.
They charge on what they call AUM, or assets under management. So naturally, they want to manage all your assets.
Absolutely.
Where I feel that that's, while that's important, again, that's a piece of the puzzle. It's just a piece. And so I also consult on real estate, and I always say a trust is a must. And I get into debt servicing if needed. And so I present clients solutions that are more than just assets under management.
Fantastic. That's great. Really helpful. So we talked a little bit about tax strategies, but can you highlight some of the lesser known strategies? And you did mention a few that individuals should consider. I guess it's probably, again, it's not a one size fits for all, you know, and what each individual should kind of be looking at when they're figuring out their tax strategies.
Right. So I do, when I take on a prospecting client, it is first, I ask, what have you done thus far? If your existing financial advisor is not asking for your tax return, that's like going to the doctor and having them prescribe a remedy without looking at your medical record.
Right.
That's how important tax planning is. And so I look at everyone's situation as what have they been doing thus far, and I actually can quantify that for them further. So I can say, if you keep doing what it is you're doing, this is what your future self looks like.
Right.
And are you on track to meet, exceed, or fall short of those goals? And then here's what I'm suggesting you consider and how much greater efficiency that's going to yield in the short and the long term.
That's amazing. Yeah, so beneficial to have you being able to look at that and kind of see where people can tweak that for the best results.
Right. Well, and for example, I had a client who, and she's such a typical example, I'm going to just use it here, 15% in her 401k. So she thought, I'm doing the right thing. I'm maximizing my 401k. So the question becomes, well, what does your employer match?
Right.
And in her situation, it was dollar for dollar up to 6%. So I said, well, do the 6% all day long. That's free money. But that 11% you're contributing above and beyond that. Let's put that into a tax-free strategy that grows tax-free, distributes tax-free. And unlike a Roth, there's no limits on income or contribution or accessibility. You can actually access it prior to 59.5. And by just redirecting the 11% she was already saving was going to change her retirement income by $7 million.
That's amazing. Yeah. Also, I love stuff like this.
Yes. Me too.
Can you tell I'm geeking out over here? I'm like, yes, that's right. Totally geeking out. I love that. Super helpful just to have you review everything and look at it for that reason. Like that would have been, obviously there are doing good and on track, but they could do better.
Right. And that's the thing too, is I often say, most successful advisors or successful people have advisors.
Right.
So I say, if just like if you got a terminal illness from your primary care, would you seek a second opinion from a specialist?
Right.
Likewise, I do a lot of free consultations, and I've done so much so that they either one, they don't realize something that they have done or should do that they aren't yet, or two, I can still improve upon the efficiencies of what it is they're doing thus far.
Right. Amazing. That's fantastic. How do you approach helping your clients balance short-term financial goals, especially right now? I think everybody's kind of feeling it right now, and their long-term retirement objectives.
Sure. Well, so the planning is a process, right? And we can only plan for what we know today.
Right.
So we always solve for those knowns. And then I always meet with my clients minimally every year, and we adjust the plan accordingly. So as, your children get older and they then get married and then have, your life obviously changes, right? Buying business, selling business, real estate, even marital status, all those things might change. And so we amend the plan accordingly.
That's great. Yeah. With the changing economic landscapes and policy reforms, how do you adapt your advice to ensure clients stay on track with their financial goals?
Sure. Well, I am pretty up to speed on all the things tax, finance, and law. And the reason for that is I still have a coach, even though I've been in practice for over 23 years. Professional athletes have coaches. And so obviously I do as well. And my coach is not only a JD, so Juris Doctorate, highest degree of attorney. He also has a master's degree in accounting, and he's a CFP. So he could talk tax, he could talk law, he could talk finances. So I learned from him.
Amazing.
And I'm always sharpening my pencil and just making sure that I'm up to speed on, and not only up to speed, but also knowing where the loopholes are with regard to tax planning.
Absolutely.
And, no disrespect at all to a CPA, but just a very different approach in that most often CPAs look at, input equals output, where I'm looking at the input. How do I positively change it to, impact the output? And so often, I actually can take a tax return and not only do a summary of a 1040 onto one page, but also looks for missed opportunities with regard to tax planning. And what I always do is reach out to that existing CPA and just explain, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, we have a mutual client. They want to save on tax. What do you suggest we do? And most commonly, that CPA really can't think of other ideas where I can ultimately say, well, what about charitable remainder trust or charitable lead trust, donor advised fund, pulled in, all these different things that the CPA is like, oh, yeah, you're right. That does actually make sense. And so just changing the conversation and making it all about the input.
I love that. Also, I would think it helps too, because you see the big picture for so many people of their whole financial goals too. So to have that puzzle piece and see how it fits in with the whole future, that's pretty fun.
Right. Right. And we always plan for a long, healthy life, right? That's the other part of it is, that's the goal ultimately is live a long, healthy life. But there are things that happen along the way. And some, I call it compromised living, where somebody might need long-term care, for example. 70% of Americans need some form. And so if you were told that there was a 70% chance of rain, would you grab an umbrella?
Right.
And, long-term care is not your grandmother's long-term care policies anymore. They provide all levels of care. It's also an asset on your books. So you don't have to give up that asset. You're not paying a premium for something you may not necessarily use. That if you never go on a long-term care claim, you actually take it as income during your lifetime. And if you don't do either, it's a benefit to your estate. So it's an asset you're just actually repurposing and protecting for that what if. So again, living a long, healthy life is obviously ideal, compromised living, and then ultimately legacy planning.
The what ifs. That's what keeps me up at night.
Right.
I love that plan. So what role does risk management play in retirement planning, and how do you guide your clients through understanding and mitigating those potential risks?
Sure. Well, I think long-term care is probably the number one because, again, statistically speaking, we all are at risk. So one of the strategies that I do is it's a hybrid approach, meaning that we redirect, I always say 1% of their assets to protect 99% of their assets. And that asset remains in something, working on their balance sheet. It has guaranteed growth rate. It grows tax-free, distributes tax-free. So it can be an asset if you never go on a long-term care claim. And so using that as another income source, but also maintaining the integrity of potentially needing it for long-term care. The other thing is, the what ifs, life insurance comes up a lot.
Right.
And the word life insurance implies you have to die to win, where there's actually a lot of what I do is designing living benefits. So ultimately, we all know that that's, going to happen at some point, hopefully in the near future. So let's also put some living benefits in place should something happen, like a disability, or you can also have long-term care riders on that, or you can pull income from it because the cash value inside of the policy is somewhat unique. I also talk about, term insurance and how that's similar. You can relate to this to renting, right? So you get to rent that death benefit, but it's actually calculated to never pay in terms of the death benefit out based on one's age, or you can own a policy and build up that equity that you then have something you can use in the future. So really educating people on just financial planning. If I had the capacity, I would go to the colleges because they, my son being 22 and my daughter being 19, they weren't taught this in school. So luckily for them, they get to learn it from me. But, someone like my son who, his immediate thought, or what commonly he would think of, is to do a Roth, right? So, but instead he's doing something I designed where he's putting in $1,000 a month. So already right there, he's doing $12,000 a year versus the Roth would only let him do $7,000. And, at his age, he's not thinking of, retirement, yes, but it's so far on the horizon. He's thinking about buying a home, right? So we design a program where he doesn't have to wait till 59 and a half. He can access that tax-free cash value.
Great. That's fantastic. I love that he's already thinking about that. I wonder where he gets that from. It's amazing. So tell us a little bit. I don't know if anyone who's watching on YouTube can see what's in the middle of the table. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, Power in Your Purse? What inspired you to write it, and where can people find it?
Sure. Well, that was actually an evolution. So starting back in 2017, when we had our wildfires, obviously we were all impacted, whether that was directly or indirectly. But for me, my sister lost her house, and I will never forget her saying she didn't know how her homeowner's policy was going to respond. She bought based on price. And it just was a revolution for me to think how many people don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
And at that time, I felt like the community was kind of frozen with regard to making any financial related decisions. And so I started gifting this book called The Power of Zero, just again, trying to lead with education. And I offered free consultations because at that time I still had my property casualty license, so I could review homeowners policies and auto policies, et cetera. So again, so you know what you at least have. And so I've really just tried to give back to my community in the only way that I can, and that is with education and my experience. So I realized I've given that book out to 500 families by now. So from there, I collaborated on a book called The Holistic Retirement Plan with 3 other industry professionals. So we collaborated on the inside, and I wrote the cover and the foreword. And then I gifted that to several hundreds of families by then. And I realized, why am I not doing my own solely offered book? I actually love to write. When my kids were growing, I could just rattle off a poem within minutes. I'm very creative in just the way that I speak. And I just love to write. And so I just started compiling just copy, just writing things, this is a common question I get all the time. How would I answer that? And just kind of just came up with the copy. And the title, Put Power in Your Purse, is obviously geared towards women. But I'm starting to say also put wisdom in your wallet for you men, because I do work with men. In fact, that's the reason to market towards women is because most of my clients are men. And that's because most commonly in a relationship, it is the man that leads that role, right or wrong. It's just is what's most common. And so there was a reality for me a couple years ago. I had 3 female clients all lose their husbands unexpectedly and prematurely, all of which didn't know, again, what they should have or could have. And so I always say that, you don't need to have a man to have a plan. And if you have a man, be part of the plan, have a voice. I always encourage when I meet with couples to bring in your spouse. So because so much can get lost in translation, right? Like you can't possibly repeat everything I'm explaining in this meeting to your spouse that's sitting at home. So if they can't come for whatever reason, then we can certainly record it, or I can, put that in an email. But I just think it's really important for both parties to be empowered and to know.
Definitely. Throwing out a question at you. Do you see a difference in the generations on like who handles the finances more? Are you seeing like older generations being more male in the relationship handling it, and a male-female relationship? Or are you seeing that kind of change as generations come up? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I would agree. As generations come up, I do feel that it is shifting a little bit. So, and I always say, empowered women, empower women. Oh, I didn't answer your question. You can find my book on Amazon.
Great.
But also I am offering a free copy copy if one goes to my website. So focusstrategicsolutions.com. You can get your copy there.
Great.
And again, just trying to lead with the information. A lot of what I talk about is how different, again, having worked in all the financial service distribution channels, my practice is to most other advisors out there. And why I always encourage somebody to speak to somebody like me. And if it's not, if it's not me, but please do have that conversation just so that you can be empowered.
Great. I love that. That's great advice. And a great book. I've read it as well. So
thank
great.
you.
So thank you for bringing that. And also, again, can you repeat where they can get their free copy?
Yes. So on my website, focusstrategicsolutions.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you share with us a success story or a memorable moment from your career where you really felt like you helped a client achieve their goals? I'm sure you have many.
I do. I do have many. Gosh, let me think about that. One that stands out to me is a client who we were just doing his overall financial plan. And of course, I'm always asking about what it is that you've done thus far. And life insurance came up. And he said, yep, done that. Don't really even want to talk about it. Did it years ago. Like that's in place, box checked. And I said, well, let's just do an in-force ledger. Let's just take a look under the hood and see what's going on there. And we actually got that back. And he didn't realize his policy was going to erode in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Nobody had told him that. So the internal credit interest rate had gone up and his cost of insurance had gone up. And so what he was putting in wasn't covering the true cost. And so it was eroding the cash value. And again, that doesn't show up on a statement.
Right.
And the person that sold it to him X years ago was out of the business. So he had no idea. So we were able to 1035 exchange the cash value, which, as you know, it's similar to a 1031, no taxation. Got him more coverage, $250,000 more in coverage, and saved him $13,000. That's amazing. Yeah. So it's like, aren't you glad we looked at that? Because now we can infuse the $13,000 and invest that otherwise. So I think just really, it's not a set it and forget it strategy because things do change, life changes, and so do products change. I mean, look at the iPhones. How often are they constantly changing?
Very true.
So are you in the latest and greatest product that you can have? The other thing I talk a lot about is indexing strategies. So I don't expose my clients to market volatility. And you don't have to give up upside potential to have reward. You don't have to take on risk. So what I mean by indexing strategies is it can be tied to an index like the S&P 500.
Right.
So when that goes up, you get to enjoy those gains. But if that is negative, your account stays flat. So I offer a lot of investments that have no risk and no fee, which I guess a differentiator with normal advisors that they, have market volatility and also are being charged, which are two of the things that can drag down a portfolio.
Right, for sure. How does that work? Or is that a conversation for another time? Like, how do you, what is that product that you're able to offer?
Well, there's so many different products. Yeah.
Okay.
It just depends on the client situation. But indexing just as a strategy overall is what I do instead of variable.
Got it.
So like if you look at, and I don't mean to just keep talking about life insurance. That's not all that I do, but there is variable life insurance, which is variable in nature, right? Subject to market performance is also very expensive. So I don't actually look at variable policies at all. Or there's fixed policies similar to a CD, fixed in duration, fixed in rate of return. I look at indexing strategies and that is tied to an index.
Got it.
And then of course, however the index does, you get to enjoy those gains. I actually even have products that have a 250% bonus on top of the gains. So if the S&P 500, for example, earned 4, you would get 9%.
Right.
If the S&P 500 was down 4, your account stays flat, but you didn't lose what you already gained last year.
Right. Fantastic.
And that's really important, I think, in retirement is taking from an asset that isn't variable. Because when you're taking income from a variable source, you have no idea how to predict it.
Right.
It's going to vary. It's going to rise and fall. So my indexing strategies, once we turn that income on, it actually can never be less than it was in the year prior. So okay, well, I know my income's never going to be less than it was last year. It potentially can go up if the market did well.
Right.
And then I'm going to have an income stream for the rest of my life because that's the greatest fear for retirees is outliving their income.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. So coming off business a little bit, everybody's favorite question. What are 3 fun facts about you personally?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think everybody knows I'm a native, so maybe I can't use that. But I was born at Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital, which is the very hospital I delivered my 2 babies.
That's amazing.
Yep.
That is a fun fact. Yeah.
Let's see. 2, speaking of babies, I would say, and my son knows this to be true, my daughter is my very best friend. She is 19. I named her after my grandmother, Genevieve, and I'm convinced that because of that, that's why she is so wise. And I can talk to her about even business. In fact, she does work for me. Very mature. but also someone I have a lot of fun with, someone I feel
awesome.
very safe with, being myself with. And she's just I have a lot of besties, but she's my number one.
Oh, I love that.
And then third, I can still do a handstand.
Ooh. So me and my kids have handstand competitions.
Do you?
Yeah. So I think I don't feel like today is an appropriate day based on our attire, but we should definitely do that sometime.
That would be fun.
That's really fun. I love that. I'm not that great, but I am a little better than them. Don't tell them. That's amazing. So towards the end of each episode, I like to ask, is there anyone that's really helped you in your career that you would like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, without question. Yes, I can. Yes. There's a gentleman named Tim Janter who was my boss at the insurance company that I worked for. But more than that, he actually became a father figure to me. And in fact, on Father's Day, I would get him, "You're like a father to me" cards. Like that's how great our relationship was personally and professionally. And just he instilled a lot of values. One of the things I still use to this day is wants and needs. When we would be talking about like me buying a new car, he would be like, "Kara, do you want it?" Which
Totally
the answer
like
was
a dad.
yes. But do you need it? And the answer is often no, right? And so just shifting your mindset to that. But just, gosh, what a stand-up kind of, he truly was an amazing, and it still is an amazing person. And I was actually, again, let go from that company. And for so long, I used to say, "How could you?"
Right.
And that, it hurt. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. But now I say thank you because if I wasn't pushed from the nest, I wouldn't have realized these beautiful wings.
Yep. I love that. I love
Thank you.
that. Also, I ask my kids that all the time. So that's why I understand the fatherhood figure. I'm always like, is that a want or a need?
Right.
Yeah. So they're very well versed in that. And they don't like when I ask that question.
Right.
So where can my listeners find you? Where are you located?
Yes.
Are you on social media? All of that.
All the things. So yes,
things.
I do have an office at the Windsor Town Green. And I also am on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. My daughter's trying to do me TikTok and podcast and all the fun things, which I think is forthcoming.
Yep.
But yes, you can reach me at 707-974-8707. My email is kstewart, STEWART, at focus-ins.com.
Perfect. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes too for anybody.
Excellent.
Let's a little quick shout out to your office. Your office is adorable.
Oh, thank you so much. I, intentionally designed that as such that when you first walk in, it does look and feel like a living room.
Yep.
And oftentimes I do a lot of my first meetings there because, of course I have a conference room with the big screen and all the things. And when we get into numbers, that's where we kind of are. But that first preliminary conversation where I'm just trying to get to know them and share with them who I am, it is comfortable talking in that space about some things that are uncomfortable. And I have to tell you, there's been a lot of tears even shed there because it's a safe place that somebody can be vulnerable. Again, not working exclusively with women, but that is kind of a demographic that has been so forthcoming. There's been, in fact, one woman stands out to me greatly because I will never forget. We were kind of ending our time together and she actually got very emotional and she said, she was coming off of a divorce and she said, I didn't think I was okay. I thought I was really emotionally, I'm a mess. I thought I was just a mess overall. And you've given me hope that financially speaking, I'm going to be and more than okay.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Certainly empowering.
For sure. That's such a transitioning time, and it's so great that you were able to be there for her too.
Right.
In that comfy, beautiful office.
Oh, thank you. I always tease my husband that if I ever put a bed there, like he actually may never see me because I'm always there. I just love the energy.
You should have one just for the really long night. So.
Yeah. I just love the energy and the positivity and the abundance that it just yields to anybody walking in the door.
For sure. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that space with us.
Of course. Yes.
Thank you for coming in today. I'm so glad you were able to
pleasure.
come and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for listening.
Yes.
If you like what you hear, please be sure to like and subscribe, learn more about Sonoma County and all that we have to offer here.